coin collectors, and welcome to the DC Coin World International Coin Channel. Today we're going to examine the 1953 1 shilling coin, the first Queen Elizabeth coin ever. And of course 1953 was the year of her coronation, and so let's talk about how we can figure out which ones are 1953 coins just from looking at the front. And if we look right at the front, of course, there's not going to be a year on the front of a 1 shilling coin, right? Not the Queen Elizabeth 1 shilling coins. There's no year on the front. This one here says Elizabeth II, Dea Gratia Regina. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. And we have this pearled or dotted outer rim. And we see that it's the Mary Gillick first portrait of the Queen. So that's a good sign, right? The first portrait of the Queen to be on money was the Mary Gillick portrait, this one with the laureate and the ribbons coming out the back. Just a beautiful, really simple portrait that just really captures the Queen at that time. Now, of course, she was a very young woman at that time, and so in 1953, when they first came out with the 1 shilling coins, well, it's been a while, let's just say that. It's been 67 years since the 1 shilling coin came out. Now, if you look at this one, it's a little different. This one says Elizabeth II, Dea Gratia. This one says Dea Gratia, but then see how it starts over here, and this is where it gets, you can define them. See where it says Brit Omn? There's no Brit Omn on here. Queen of all Britons, that's Brittons, or Queen of all Brittany, you might call it, or Queen of all Great Britain. Regina is the Queen part. So on this one, it doesn't have the Brit Om, this one it does. And that's because in the coronation year, they put the Queen of all Britons on the coin, and after that, they did not. So if we look at this coin, we can see that it has the Brit Om on it, and that's how we can tell from the front that this is the 1953, the only year they put the Brit on there. Now, the Mary Gillick portrait doesn't tell us anything because Mary Gillick portrait was on the front of the 1 shilling coins from 1953 until 1970 when they stopped making them. So this one is not, so we know if we turn this over it won't be a 1953. What will it be? This is a 1966, so this one is not a Mary Gillick. It's not a Mary Gillick Brit Om portrait. Okay, this one here, there's a Brit Om. Okay, this one here, no Brit Om on here, so that's out. This one here, Brit Om. Okay, so let's look at the back of this one also. All right, look at that. So this says Fid Def on the top, Defender of the Faith, 1 shilling at the bottom. We have a 19 here, and then we have the Scottish Shield, and then we have, or the Standing Lion for Scotland. It's crowned, and it says 53. So 19, Scottish Shield, 53. So we know this is a 53. We know this is a 53 because it has a Brit Om on it. So let's flip this one over too. It isn't that weird. One of the things we need to remember about the 1 shilling coins is that they had 2 different backs on them. They had the English back, which is, in this case, the lion supine, or lying down. There's 1, 2, 3 lions on there. Can you see them? Just a really fine engraving here. So there's a lion, a lion, a lion. 19 separated by the shield of 53. Of course, it's crowned still. We have these little, they're not really fleur-de-lis, but they're little, those type of designs. And then we have a W here and a G here. And that's for the engraver, William Maving Gardner, who engraved these coins. And let's see if we can see that on the Scottish Shield. We also have the W and the G, the 1953. So if we make them a little bit smaller and look at them both, we can clearly see the difference between the Scottish Shield, and this is the crowned lion. He actually has a crown on, or he or she. Well, kind of does, has a fleur-de-lis crown. And then this one over here with the 3 lions lying down. Now, so we know this is a 1953. We know there's 2 versions of the 1953. And if any of you have ever looked for the 1952 coin, you'll notice that it's not available. They did not make any coins in 1952. And of course, 1952, the year that Queen Elizabeth's father died, George VI. So what did the prior coin look like? Well, let's pull out a 1951 coin. Let's pull out a 1951 coin. Here's one, 1951. Oh, so they actually changed the back for Queen Elizabeth also. So I'm not sure if everybody knew that. So let's take a look. So this is the Scottish shield back from George VI in 1951. So you see 19 separated by the Scottish lion, crouching lion essentially, holding the scepter and the sword, and a 51. The shield here. Of course, there's a Scottish thistle and kind of the Union Jack. The crown he's on top of. It says Fid Def at the top, 1 shilling. Big difference. We still have the Fid Def. We still have the centerpiece, but it's a different centerpiece. We do have it separated by the date. And of course, it does say 1 shilling on the back. These coins are the exact same size and the exact same weight, and they have the exact same reeded edge. So we know that in 51, between 51 and 53, when the Queen Elizabeth coins came out, they changed the back. Did they change the back of this one too? Well, let's take a look. They sure did. So the English lying down lions in 1951 was this English crowned lion standing on top of a crown. So here's Scotland, here's England, here's the 51. The front, of course, on both were the same, and that's, of course, George VI, DG, by the grace of God. But he had the Brit Omn on all his coins. So he was king of all Britons on all of his coins. It wasn't just during the coronation year. Now, this coin did not last very long. When we look at this coin only went from 1949 to 1951, and there's a reason for that. And that is because in 1948, so let's flip this over. In 1948, India was still part of the United Kingdom or Great Britain, and India was always noted on the coins. So this one, if you look at this one, it says Fid Def, of course. Then it says Ind Imp, Imperator or Emperor of India. So in 1948, they finished with this coin. They came out with this coin, these backs, in 1949 to 51. And prior to 1948, in 1946, they made another change. So one of the reasons that collectors almost can never find the 1946 and before 1 shilling coins is because in 1946, they came out with the British Currency Act and they changed the coins. And what they did was, in 1945, the coins were 50% silver. So 1945 and before. So if you find a 1 shilling before 1946, it's going to be silver, half silver. In 1946, they moved to 75% copper and 25% nickel. The problem is that they weigh exactly the same thing. So you have to look at the year date. Before 1946, half silver worth a lot more money. After 1946, 75% copper and 25% nickel. All right, so that's enough for the George VI. So let's look at the Queen Elizabeth ones. Now, Queen Elizabeth, so she had Queen Elizabeth on the front. She had Brit Omn on all the first year ones. And then after that, they took the Brit Omn off. And so this is a 1954. And of course, now you know this is the English shield, 1954, without the Brit Omn on it. And what they did was, you can see they actually made the letters bigger and spread them out a little bit more. And they essentially moved them closer to the center. So this portrait, still a Mary Gillick portrait. Now, I said that this portrait stayed until 1970, and it did. And so let's look at the 1971 shillings. And here's a couple of them. Here's the problem with these, and you're going to say, why are they so shiny? And of course, I want to show you that it's still a Mary Gillick portrait in 1970. Why are they so shiny? The English shield, the Scottish shield, well, they're so shiny because in 1970, they only produced these in a non-circulating proof or brilliant uncirculated condition. And that's how you can see they're just beautiful coins, but they weren't general circulation coins, but they made them the same. Now that's weird. And why do I say that's weird? Because prior to 1970, they had already started to change the British coins. And let me show you one right here. This is one from 1968, and it doesn't have the Mary Gillick portrait. I thought that, one of the things I told you was that the 1 shillings from 1953 until 1970 all had the Mary Gillick portrait. And I just showed you a 1970 and it has the Mary Gillick portrait. So what happened here? Why do we have the Arnold Machin portrait on the coin? Well, that's because in 1968, Britain started to embrace decimalization of the British coins, and they changed it from being 240 pence to the pound to 100 pence to the pound. And so in 1968, before they even stopped making the 1 shilling coins, they came out with one that was the same size, the same weight, and if we tip these up and look, I think we can see that they're almost exactly the same reeded edge. Almost exactly the same spacing between the reeds. See how we can follow these reeds across and they continue to match each other all the way around? So they came out with a coin in 1968, which is really weird. At the same time, they were already making the 1 shilling with a different portrait on it, but it wasn't a 1 shilling. It was a 5 new pence. And if we look at the 5 new pence, we see something interesting on it. It says new pence on the top, the 5, and there's the crowned Scottish thistle on the back. And this is the only back they ever put on the 5 new pence coin. They did not put on an English and Scottish back. It was only the Scottish thistle on the 5 new pence. But they took the old shields off. And so you get quite a difference here. And you also see the pearled. See how this is more of a geared, this is more of a pearled. So they changed it up almost completely. They put a new Arnold Machin. And so Arnold Machin second portrait coexisted with the Mary Gillick first portrait until 1990. If you can imagine that. These coins both stayed in circulation until 1990, until December 31st, 1990, at which time they stopped making the new pence and they made it straight to a 5 pence coin. And they wanted to make it really clear that you couldn't use these anymore. And so the way that they did that was to introduce this coin. So this is the 5 pence coin that came out in 1990. And this is another weird fact. These three also coexisted. This was a 1990 coin, but these were good until December 31st, 1990. So for that year or part of that year, whenever this one came out, these ones were still good, but they no longer were good after 1990. And that was the small 5 pence coin. And so you see on the 5 pence here, it says 5 pence. They took the new off and put a 5 in. They made it much smaller, and they got rid of the old 5 pence coin, and they got rid of the Mary Gillick portrait, and they moved on to the new 5 pence coin with only this portrait. And does anybody know what this particular portrait is? Well, this is not the Ian Rank Broadley portrait. See there. It's not the Arnold Machin. Oh, or is it? So this is the Raphael David McClure portrait. See the RDM right there? So in 1990 when they came out, they not only skipped from this portrait to this portrait, they also skipped right over the Arnold Machin portrait. Oh, and this is a weird coin. I'm not even sure what this one is. This is, this isn't from United Kingdom. So in some of the United Kingdom countries, what they did was they actually went straight to dollar style coins. So this is the Eastern Caribbean states. This is in 87, but well before this, they went to the dollar. So in Australia, New Zealand, these Eastern Caribbean states, Belize, a number of other countries, they used a dollar and they actually had 25-cent coins. They never went to the 5 new pence. All right, what was one other thing that we should know about the 1 shilling and um, the 5 new pence? And that is that the 5 new pence was worth exactly the same as a 1 shilling. And I'm almost done, so if you want to hang on just a little bit longer. This coin, the 1 shilling coin, was 1/20th of a pound. The 5 new pence was 1/20th of a new pound. So 5 to 100 on this one, and 5 and 20 to 240 on this one. These were both worth exactly the same value to the pound, which was 1/20th of a pound. All right, kind of long-winded, but I love doing this. We'd love to have you subscribe to our channels, the DC Coin World International Coin Channel and the United Kingdom Coin World Channel. And please leave any comments you have in the comments section.